October 10th, 2025. Before sunrise, the port of Novorossiysk on the Black Sea became the stage for a silent deal between Beijing and Moscow. High above, a satellite from Kiev's Lantaris space system pierced through the Crimean fog and caught sight of something invisible to the human eye. A convoy of trucks moving in eerie silence. Inside were DF-11 short-range ballistic missiles, each capable of carrying a 1,100-pound warhead, enough to erase an entire district of a Ukrainian city. The signal reached Kiev's command center like a spark hitting dry powder. No speeches, no negotiations. Only one command: activate Operation Night Veil. Within minutes, dozens of FPV kamikaze drones lifted off, cheap, small, and relentless. No chatter filled the network, only coordinates and one encrypted word: attack. Now 15 missile trucks and their armed escorts were driving straight into a storm they couldn't see. Could Russia's Panzer S-1 air defense intercept this swarm of low-cost assassins? Or would this night end with an explosion that rewrote the balance of power on the Black Sea? Let's find out. October 10th, 2025, 03:47 a.m. High above the Black Sea, a Lantaris space system satellite, just one of 26 orbiting Ukraine's defense grid, captured a frame that changed everything. In the stillness of Crimea's Novorossiysk port, a container marked ALH-455 was being unloaded. Its steel walls bore the emblem of China's Norinco Group. Around it moved approximately 20 Chinese soldiers heavily armed, guarding what appeared to be a covert missile transfer. Within 9 seconds of transmission, the image reached Kyiv. The AI system in Kiev's command center ran the footage through 128 recognition filters. The verdict was immediate and chilling. Inside those 15 trucks were DF-11 short-range missiles, each capable of carrying a 1,100-pound warhead to a range of nearly 190 miles, enough to strike deep into Ukraine's second-largest city, Kharkiv. If the convoy reached its forest base in Belgorod, Russia would gain a battlefield advantage worth hundreds of millions of dollars and potentially cost thousands of Ukrainian lives. At 3:49 a.m., a red alert flashed across the Kiev Situation Room. Operation Night Veil, one analyst muttered. A Reaper MQ-9, armed with 4 Hellfire missiles and advanced EO/IR sensors, was launched to 10,000 feet, tasked to shadow the convoy and capture every radio pulse, every engine heat signature. The MQ-9 sensors detected 15 trucks, 4 escort vehicles, and 2 command jeeps moving north at roughly 38 miles per hour through dense woodland. AI algorithms projected their likely rest stop, 12 miles ahead, near a fuel depot routinely used by Russian logistics convoys. Inside Kyiv, the realization settled like ice. This wasn't a cargo run. It was a mobile escalation. China supplying Russia's front line under cover of darkness. The decision came with no debate. "We intercept," the director ordered. At 3:52 a.m., data links locked, satellites aligned, and Ukraine's first invisible strike of the night began. The hunters were already in motion. 4:05 a.m. The MQ-9 Reaper held steady at 10,000 feet, engines whispering above the fog-covered forest of Belgorod. On its thermal feed, 15 missile trucks, 4 escort vehicles, and 1 command jeep carved a glowing trail through the darkness. Each DF-11 missile carried a 1,100-pound warhead, enough to obliterate a city block the size of Times Square. Altogether, the convoy carried a combined explosive potential exceeding 16,000 pounds of high-grade TNT, a rolling bomb train moving barely 38 miles per hour toward Ukraine's border. Inside Kiev's control center, a wall of monitors flickered with intercepted data. Ukraine's AI algorithms analyzed over 400 gigabytes of live telemetry every minute. Within 46 seconds, they identified the command vehicle by its abnormal burst pattern. 37 unique RF signatures clustered around a high-band frequency at 4.3 gigahertz. Predictive mapping estimated the convoy would pause 12.4 miles ahead, near an abandoned fueling depot last used by Russian armor columns in early 2023. The order came fast. Deploy 2 modified MTLB armored vehicles, call signs Echo 1 and Echo 2, to intercept. They moved under radar blackout, halting 4 miles from the highway. Both vehicles carried custom EW suites powered by twin 4-kilowatt emitters, each capable of replaying and distorting enemy telemetry in real time. Their secret weapon? Echo Trap, a system built to reflect radio waves back at their source, turning enemy jammers into blind transmitters. At 4:13 a.m., alarms flared. A Buk M2 missile system stationed 8 miles south detected a low-flying Ukrainian scout drone at 620 feet altitude and vaporized it with a single missile traveling Mach 3.5. Within minutes, Russia launched 2 Orlan 10 drones, each broadcasting jamming waves strong enough to paralyze electronics within 10 square miles. But the Ukrainians struck first. Echo 1 activated the trap. It captured the Orlan's 4.3 gigahertz pulse, inverted it, and sent it back. The result? Total chaos. Both Orlans reported conflicting coordinates, spinning out of alignment. For 172 seconds, Russia's jamming grid went blind, a blackout window worth millions of dollars in disrupted defense systems. In that silence, Kiev's AI locked onto the final waypoint, 4:15 a.m. The convoy would stop right where the forest narrowed, just as predicted. The trap was ready. The strike would follow in minutes. Everything was in place. The traps, the decoys, the silence. But no one in Kiev could say with certainty whether the enemy would step into the kill zone or vanish into the mist forever. 4:15 a.m. The Belgorod forest was silent, too silent. Dew clung to the pine needles, engines hummed low, and 15 missile trucks, each worth nearly $8 million, rolled into a narrow clearing. The convoy's total cargo, over $120 million in DF-11 missiles and logistics gear, could flatten entire city sectors if deployed on the Kharkiv front. But the drivers didn't know they were already inside a kill box calculated down to the last 12 feet by Kiev's AI. At 04:16:42, the encrypted message arrived from Kiev. Execute Strike Alpha. Inside the second MTLB, its hull still cold from a night under camouflage netting, 2 operators keyed ignition. A sound like a swarm of bees tore through the trees as 20 FPV kamikaze drones shot upward. Each was only 4.4 pounds, carrying a 2-pound shaped charge, yet together they carried enough explosive power to rival a 500-pound bomb. They climbed to 200 feet, synchronized via laser pulse telemetry refreshed 20 times per second. Then the swarm broke into patterns only AI could predict. 10 targeted the convoy's fuel trucks, 5 aimed for missile trailers, and 5 at command vehicles. Russian radar operators, reading a screen filled with dozens of false echoes, never saw them coming. 4:17:10. The first drone hit. A direct strike into a fuel truck carrying 620 gallons of diesel produced an orange fireball that reached 65 feet into the air and registered 3.2 on local seismic sensors. Within 8 seconds, 2 more drones punched into missile bays, each DF-11 warhead containing 1,100 pounds of propellant. The blast sequence chained at 1,700 feet per second, turning 15 vehicles into a storm of molten shrapnel. Panic rippled through the escort units. The Pantsir S-1 nearby attempted a countersalvo, 3 57E6 missiles, each costing $90,000. But its radar, corrupted by echo trap interference, misfired all 3 into empty air. Russian soldiers fired wildly into the smoke. The sound of rifles was swallowed by explosions that lit up the forest for miles. By 4:18:40, the flames consumed everything. Trucks melted into skeletal frames. Shockwaves shattered glass 9 miles away. Drone telemetry logged a heat spike of 1,400 degrees Fahrenheit at the epicenter. In less than 5 minutes, an operation worth under $25,000 had annihilated over $120 million in hardware, killing or disabling 55 soldiers, many believed to be Chinese advisors embedded with the Russian team. 4:20 a.m. Silence. A crater 35 feet wide smoldered at the heart of the clearing. From orbit, Lanteris confirmed total destruction. One analyst in Kiev whispered the math aloud. 20 drones took down 15 missile trucks. That's 1 kill every 15 seconds. The forest had just rewritten the rules of modern warfare. If you think the strike ended here, think again. The aftermath would expose secrets Russia never wanted the world to see. Keep watching. 4:21 a.m. The echo of the explosions still rolled across Belgorod's forest valleys when the last fires began to fade. Where the convoy had been, there was only ruin. 15 DF-11 missile trucks reduced to molten frames, 4 escort vehicles burned into the soil, and a crater 35 feet wide glowing like a furnace. The heat signature peaked at 1,420 degrees Fahrenheit, enough to liquefy aluminum, melt asphalt, and warp the steel suspensions of nearby vehicles. For the next 20 minutes, the forest burned like a torch. Russian units at a nearby radar station, 11 miles away, misread the destruction as an artillery strike. The Pantsir S-1 battery, already half-blind from echo trap interference, launched 2 more missiles, both worth $180,000, into nothing. One exploded in mid-air, scattering debris across their own perimeter. Local commanders went silent, their encrypted radios overwhelmed by a wave of static from the destroyed convoy's RF systems frying simultaneously. At 4:35 a.m., the first emergency response team reached the site. Drone footage later showed 55 dead or missing, at least 22 bodies belonging to Russian and Chinese personnel. Every missile casing was split open. None were salvageable. The shockwave had shattered 57 windows in a nearby rural settlement 9.3 miles away. Forensic units described the blast pattern as surgical yet catastrophic. Meanwhile, in Kiev's underground intelligence center, screens glowed in the dark. The Reaper's infrared feed confirmed total destruction, and the AI displayed a single word on its interface: objective complete. Applause was brief. Many knew what this meant. A Chinese-supplied weapons convoy had been wiped out inside Russian territory. The diplomatic implications would ripple far beyond the battlefield. By 5 a.m., Russian state channels declared a logistical fire accident. Within hours, however, Maxar's independent satellite imagery went public, showing identical coordinates: 50.499 degrees north, 36.618 degrees east, matching the Kyiv operation logs. The blast crater, over 10 meters deep, left no room for denial. For Ukraine, it was a triumph built on silence. For Russia and China, it was an embarrassment measured not in words, but in tons of ash. Over 300,000 pounds of destroyed military hardware, erased in less than 5 minutes. The war had entered a new phase, invisible, precise, and impossible to ignore. By sunrise, 6 a.m., the smoldering crater outside Belgorod had already become the most analyzed piece of Earth on the planet. Satellite feeds from Lantris, Maxar, and NASA's Terra probe confirmed identical coordinates: 50.499 degrees north, 36.618 degrees east, and an impact zone spanning 112 feet across. Within hours, analysts compared the data. A $25,000 Ukrainian swarm had erased $120 million worth of Chinese-built missile systems and 55 trained personnel in under 4 minutes. It was not just a strike, it was a demonstration, a warning written in fire. In Kyiv, the debrief began. The operation's success hinged on 5 components, each one as improbable as it was precise. Orbital detection from a 2.6-ton Lantris satellite orbiting at 310 miles. AI-assisted signal mapping that processed over 400 gigabytes per minute. Echo trap technology reflecting jamming frequencies with 98.6% accuracy. The ultra-quiet MTLB-2 control module hidden only 4.1 miles from the highway. And the FPV swarm synchronization, refreshing guidance data every 0.05 seconds. Together, they created a digital ambush no human commander could have timed by instinct. But the cost wasn't only measured in rubles or dollars. For Ukraine, this operation risked escalation on a global scale. Chinese personnel among the casualties meant the strike had pierced beyond a battlefield. It had touched a geopolitical nerve. Within 36 hours, both Moscow and Beijing filed formal diplomatic protests at the UN, accusing Ukraine of unprovoked aggression. Kyiv's response was curt. The convoy carried weapons of war. We removed them. Behind closed doors, Western intelligence called it the 5-minute miracle. Military analysts in Washington noted that the drones, built from recycled components and 3D printed shells, had achieved an efficiency ratio of 4,800 to 1 in cost versus destruction. One Pentagon source remarked, "No nation in modern history has ever generated that much impact from that little hardware." Yet amid the celebration, a quiet unease grew. If 20 homemade drones could erase $1 million convoy overnight, what would the next generation bring? As dawn rose over Kyiv, one question remained on every analyst's screen. Was this brilliance or the beginning of something far more dangerous? By 7:10 a.m., the smoke over Belgorod had thinned, curling like gray ribbons above a scar that didn't exist the night before. The Lanteris satellite made another pass, capturing the aftermath in brutal clarity. 15 blackened shells, a crater 35 feet wide, and what analysts estimated to be over 300,000 pounds of obliterated hardware. The world's media hadn't yet woken up, but history had already changed course. In Kyiv's underground command room, operators removed their headsets one by one. There were no cheers, no celebration, only the quiet hum of computers and the slow realization that they had just redefined modern warfare. The mission cost less than a luxury car, yet it had vaporized a missile convoy protected by 2 layers of air defense, 4 armored escorts, and $120 million worth of combined Russian-Chinese assets. A cost-to-destruction ratio of nearly 1 to 5,000. Hours later, international networks began to report an unexplained explosion near Belgorod. Russian state TV called it a fuel accident. Beijing denied any Chinese presence. But the satellite images told another story, one that could not be buried, one that burned too brightly. In intelligence circles, the strike became known by a single code name, Operation Silent Forest. To the world, it was a footnote. To Ukraine, it was proof that ingenuity could triumph over firepower, that a nation fighting for its survival could outthink empires armed with gold and steel. And yet, beneath the triumph lay a question that refused to fade. If this war could now be won by algorithms, satellites, and drones no larger than a bird, what would come next? Because somewhere above the clouds, new machines were already watching, and the war of tomorrow had just begun. If you found this analysis insightful and want to support more in-depth breakdowns like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss the next unfolding conflict.